So let's start with regenerating our motivation and then offering a short mandala. So again, think of all sentient beings of the six realms surrounding you. And then generate thinking of the suffering of oneself and others, generating a wish to be free from that in this life and future lives, from all the suffering of samsara. And try to generate a bodhicitta motivation, aspiring to achieve the state of full enlightenment, having purified every obscuration and eliminated all faults and perfected every positive quality, especially of compassion and wisdom, in order to be of the greatest possible benefit to all sentient beings. So then to create the cause to receive the blessings and generate realizations, we can offer a mandala. Sajipoki Geshe do Samri Ramleshi Nide Yapane Sange Shendo Mete Ohi Rokona Dai Shin Cho Bar Sho Idam Guru Rana Mandaka Nirataya Sangye Chodan Zogi Chodan Ma Janjo Bada Dani Kyabzuchi Dagi Jinzagi Bet Sonanki Rola Penchu Sangye Dru Parsho. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. They're the two collections I create by practicing generosity and other perfections. May I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened. The Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. With my two collections from listening to the Dharma, explaining the Dharma. May I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Okay, so let's continue. Actually, there's quite a few verses I want to go through. Yeah, so we were just looking at this before lunch, this verse by Chandakirti, and just how every phenomena that exists has both ultimate nature, its emptiness of inherent existence or emptiness of existing from its own side, and then has a conventional nature. It's, the phenomena itself, most phenomena, they themselves are conventional truth, or they have, qualities, aspects of them that are conventional truths, or both, right? So, yeah. Again, just like, for example, the flowers here, the flowers are conventional truth because they're a mind, they're an object which is known by, the object which knows the flowers, realizes the flowers, is a conventional mind. So why is it a conventional mind? Because to that mind, the way the flowers appear is false, is as if they exist from their own side, whereas in fact they don't exist from their own side. So therefore the flowers they're true for a conventional mind. So therefore they're conventional truth. So the flowers themselves are conventional truth, but their flowers have, one of their characteristics is that they're empty of existing from their own side. So that's their ultimate truth, or their ultimate nature. So those natures and the ultimate nature, or the emptiness of the flowers, exist independent upon the flowers, which are conventional truth. So the ultimate truth that's a characteristic of the flowers exists independence upon, or as a quality of the basis, the flowers themselves. So, yeah, like that, the conventional truth and ultimate truth, it's not like they're two separate things. They're mutually dependent, and they're always, it's because of the existence of conventional phenomena that there can be their emptiness of inherent existence. So in that way, ultimate truth depends upon conventional truth. But it's also because all phenomena are empty of existing inherently or by their own power or from their own side, that they're able to exist independence upon causes and conditions, independence upon parts, and independence upon a mind which understands them, right? So the functionality of all conventional phenomena depends upon their ultimate nature, right? So those two natures are inextricably connected. But not only just every phenomena is both has aspects of both, conventional nature and ultimate nature, but also like think about the path to enlightenment. The whole path of spiritual practice to enlightenment. It depends upon the two truths, right? It depends upon, of course, realizing. I mean, the fourth one here, realizing emptiness, is the way to eliminate that fundamental ignorance, which is the source of all suffering. But just realizing emptiness itself is not enough. Like, one has to also generate all the other realizations of the path, right? So just to give some of the main ones here, an understanding of dependent arising, right? Just an understanding of interdependence of things. That's a conventional nature or conventional truth of things. And then also like the dependent arising, reflecting how our lives depend upon other sentient beings, generating kindness and gratitude, or generating gratitude for other sentient beings. Then that's a kind of, and then realizing how other sentient beings suffer just as we do. That's all, realizations of conventional phenomena, conventional truths. And then the mind of renunciation, recognizing the faults of samsara, and wishing to be free from that, as a conventional truth. Then bodhicitta, the aspiration, seeing the suffering of all sentient beings and realizing their potential for full enlightenment, and then wishing to, become fully enlightened in order to lead all sentient beings to freedom from suffering and the state of full enlightenment, is also a conventional truth. And then there's the realization of emptiness. Even the mind realizing emptiness, the mind itself is a conventional truth. Like any consciousness is always a conventional truth because it's not emptiness, right? Only emptiness is ultimate truth. But the object emptiness or ultimate truth realized by a mind analyzing the ultimate is the object is an ultimate truth. So in short, like what I was saying before, emptiness, the mere lack of inherent existence of any phenomena is its emptiness, and that is its ultimate truth. And that's what makes possible its interconnectedness and interaction with other phenomena. But all the other aspects of a phenomena are conventional truths. So any questions about that kind of how the main thing here, how ultimate truth and conventional truth are depend upon each other, and how phenomena they have both the ultimate nature and a conventional nature. No, it's clear. Okay. not sure. Okay. Right. Crystal clear. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's look at maybe, a few more things. Maybe it'll help clarify. I don't know. We'll see. So yeah, generally, like how to develop an understanding of the true truths. Yeah. Well, one way is to, in general, like reflect again and again on the difference between the way things ordinarily appear and how they actually exist. Because that's, the two truths, it's a bit, that's what it's kind of saying, is that the way things ordinarily appear to us is not how they exist, right? The way how the things ordinarily appear is to a conventional mind. That's not analyzing to know their ultimate nature. So again and again, that kind of analysis we did yesterday, where we look at how we ordinarily appear in different situations and then analyze, do we actually exist like that? Can we find a person, a self that actually exists in that way? And then you find it can't, right? So the way we start off, we ordinarily appear is like looking at the conventional nature, conventional truth of things. But then when we analyze to find precisely the object, how it exists, then the ultimate nature of it comes more and more clear. But there's many examples of how, yeah, I find it's a bit helpful to look at some other examples of how often things appear in a way that they don't actually exist. So these are a few examples I came up with. One is, yeah, like geocentrism prior to Copernicus. No. So in the past, in the world, people thought, they look at the sky and see the sun, rising and setting, and the moon rising and setting, and they think the Earth is at the center of the universe, and the sun is orbiting, it's going around the Earth. That's kind of what it looks like, if you don't observe carefully. And the moon is, well, the moon is orbiting around the Earth, so that's not a problem. But the sun, and all the stars, people thought all the stars are rotating around the Earth. But then with Copernicus and Brahms or something, there's a few other scientists involved, but Copernicus kind of gets the credit. Then he made more careful observation of the orbit of different planets, and then realized and kind of proved that actually it's the Earth that orbits around the sun, the other way around. So, which is a big, it's, you can kind of imagine, it's a huge shift in your perception of the world. The Christian church was very unhappy with that, right? Because it takes the Earth out of the center of things. So yeah, that's one. The way it appears, then analyze, and the way it actually exists is something completely different. You see. Another is the way things appear as solid, like tables and things. The appearance of hard things, yeah, for lack of a better category. They appear as solid, but yet atoms are composed of 99 point, and this I copied from Google, from some science website. Not just 99%, 99.99999, 6 decimal places percent space, atoms. So it's quite strange, no? I remember being kind of shocked when I learned about this in high school. You look at like a table or, a concrete wall or a metal of a car, it looks very solid. Even a chunk of metal, no? It looks like it's very heavy, very solid, like no way you can pass anything through it. And yet it's made up of 99.99999% space, right? So it's really weird. Why? And then I looked at some explanations because I never looked before. Why do things appear so solid when there's so much space? And one explanation is like helicopter blades, because they're moving so fast. When helicopter blades are moving very fast, it looks like a solid disc, more or less. But just because the blades are moving so fast, you can't see the space. So one explanation is like the parts of mainly the electrons, I suppose, or the atoms, they're moving so fast that when you look at it, it looks solid. But actually, that one I don't find so convincing. But I don't know. That's what they say. Another is, there's a second explanation, but I don't remember. Anyway, it's another example of the way things appear is not actually how they exist. And then the third example I just thought of for this course: side view mirrors. There's always that note on side view mirrors on the car. Objects may be closer than they appear, right? Yeah. So objects may be closer, yeah, which is a big danger, right? If you look in the side view mirror and you think, oh, the car is that far away, but actually it's much closer, and then you go to turn the lane or change lanes, you crash into it, right? So, but that's an example due to, I guess, I'm not sure, the curvature of the mirror or something. Like, why did they make? Is it because, I don't know why that is, but yeah. But with mirrors, in mirrors in general, they often deceive our senses. Things look like just things. I mean, when we're young and we don't understand mirrors, some animals, apparently among animals, elephants and dogs are apparently too, maybe dolphins also, they can recognize their reflection in a mirror. Other animals can't. It's kind of a test of a way to distinguish the intelligence of different animals. You can look on like YouTube, you can see videos. They put these huge mirrors in like an elephant pen. And then I forget how they do exactly, but they, at some point they make a mark, like a big mark on the elephant's face. And then when the elephant looks in the mirror, that you can see they touch. themselves, they recognize, oh, that's on my head. No, it's very interesting. But if we don't, if we're yeah not familiar with how mirrors work, then we see a reflection in the mirror, and at first we think it's something other than us. No, or we might think it's really is our face. Either way. Anyway, that's another example of how it's interesting to look at different examples of how our perception is not nearly as accurate as we ordinarily assume it to be. So anytime we see something that looks one way, and then when we investigate, we find it's something else, it's kind of an example of the two truths. It's a similarity. So then the other way is the meditative analysis of the person, like we did yesterday. So this I won't speak about much, but just to kind of review a bit. So we started off, just to remind you how the meditation goes. Because it's so important to see the distinction between the way ordinarily things, how they ordinarily appear, and how they actually exist. We have to do there's different ways of meditating on emptiness, different lines of reasoning to use. Like you can think about primarily about how things are produced, their causes, or think primarily how they produce effects, and then the reasoning of being one or many, or being the same or different with something, which is more or less the one this one involves. Like we look for the object of negation, try to identify the way the person ordinarily exists, and then see if it's one with the aggregates or different from the aggregates. It's just a different way of describing it. But they all come back to the reasoning of dependent arising. It's because things are dependent arisings in different ways that therefore they're empty of inherent existence. So the way we did the meditation yesterday, so we look at how we ordinarily appear to exist in these different situations, when we're falsely accused of doing something wrong, or when we're highly self-conscious, like we enter a room full of people, they look at us, or when just in general, when afflictive emotions arise. The stronger afflictive emotion arises, the stronger the sense of grasping at an I, an inherently existent I. And then we have to ask, does the person seem to exist in dependence on causes, parts, or the mind, which imputes I? So usually it doesn't. It seems like it just exists not those ways, just from its own side. Right? And then does it exist, do we exist in that way, not depending upon other things? Then we search for the person within the aggregates, so within the body, within the mind. And then when we can't find there, we search for the person outside of the aggregates. And then when we can't find there, then it shows the person does not exist from their own side, right? They do not exist in that way they appear to initially. So then the question comes, well, how do we actually exist? Because clearly there's a person, it's not that we don't exist at all. There's a person that exists, but the person that does exist, how do they exist? As a dependent arising, right? And there's three main ways of dependent arising, and then there's one other fourth one that I've added here that it does come up, and it's good to know about. The three main ones are a dependence upon causes, and dependence upon parts, and then dependence upon concepts or mental imputation by concepts. So, and we've spoken about all of them a little bit. No? So dependence upon causes just means, a cause is something that comes before an object and then contributes to producing or giving rise to that object, to producing that object. So, when we look at ourselves, we think of what are our causes. Just this life, like the body of this life, came from our mother and father, at the time of conception, from their sperm and egg cells, and then they develop, nourished by nutrients from the blood of our mother, and then later, as we eat, when we eat food, drink water, breathe the air, wear clothes, are in a protected environment. All those have become causes of our body to grow and flourish. So like now our lunch, what did we have? 4 season spring rolls at lunch. Those are, those are causes for, that food is now being converted into energy that we're using, right? So that's causes for our physical actions and our kind of physical sustenance at this moment. Definitely lunch from yesterday. Lunch from today, it's not sure where it is exactly, but lunch from yesterday is a largely, I get the energy from it has probably been extracted mostly into our blood, into our bodies. And then the causes of things in our mind, all of our ideas, the language we're using, has been developed over many centuries, thousands of years. And then the ideas that we have, we build up ideas from the time we're young, and then we use them to communicate, think about things, understand things. So those are all causes for us becoming as a person. And then something simple like the flowers, the earth from which it grew, the air, the carbon dioxide they absorb from the air, the sunlight, which they photosynthesize to produce, and then the water, and then the previous generations of those plants, that give rise. So all that, infinite chain of causes. Mm. Mm. But the thing is, as soon as something arises, if something arises from causes, then it means like it's changing. To arise from a cause, the thing has to change because the cause itself, changes, becomes something else, which means, and as soon as it has to be, if it's something that's changing, it's interesting to think about, but it's, well, if it's something that changes, then it means its nature is to change, and it's continually changing. It's not like things can't go, and it's interesting question, like why not? But things can't go from just like changing to not changing, and then to changing again, right? If something is arisen from causes, it means it's impermanent. It's changed from just not existing to coming into existence. But not only that, it's the matter which makes it up, or the stuff which makes it up, whether it's a physical thing or a mental experience, has been produced by something else. So that fundamentals, like the substance of what it is, has arisen from something else, and thereby it's newly come into being. It's changed. Something else has changed to become the stuff of that phenomena, which means its nature has changed. It's continually changing. So anything which is an effect of a cause is also a cause of subsequent effects. So cause and effect are actually one meaning. Yeah, I thought that would come up, because we often say things arise in dependence upon causes and conditions. Yeah, actually they're synonymous. I mean, anything that's a condition is a cause. Anything that's a cause is also a condition, but generally, like for a specific phenomena, like when we say cause, it means like the main cause, and the conditions are the secondary causes, the contributing factors. So for like a flower, the main cause of the rose is, probably it's grown from a clipping, like a shoot. So it's the shoot, or like from the main cause of the rose flower would be, the bud, which gave rise to it. But then for that bud to transform into being a flower, it also requires warmth, moisture, light. And so the warmth, moisture, and light are all secondary causes. They're not the main cause. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If someone grows up in, for instance, someone that we know,
Mm-hmm.
Trump, right? Like,
okay. Trump?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because they were saying that his father was of a certain personality, and he grew up with that environment, and one of the reasons he's like that is because of that. So is that a cause or a condition? Like
that's a good
you're
one.
nurturing,
that's a good one.
You're nurturing your environment.
I'd say it's I'd say for anyone, the person, the kind of the personality that someone develops, is their parents, and the environment of their home, and their family that they grew up on. Is that the main cause, or a secondary cause of the personality they develop? Gosh, that's a good one. And I'm not sure the answer would be the same in all cases, but generally I tend to say it's, in most cases, it's probably, I don't know. It's a difficult one. I would tend to say it's secondary, because the karma because I mean, Buddhist explanation, the karma plays a large part. Like, and just like I was thinking about your question from yesterday, like what is the karmic connection with a certain set of parents? Because that's also not an easy one. But because even it looks like a child becomes very much like their parents, their behavior mimics very much their parents. But then part of the reason they're born to that parents is because they have the karma to become like that, right? And that's part of the karmic connection thing. Is like if a child doesn't have, like if a person when they die, they've been a very kind-hearted person, very kind to everyone around them for many, many, many lives. And so they don't have the karma to be born to experience a lot of abuse. Then at the time they die, if the only set of the couples who are in sexual union at that time so that they could take rebirth, if that would mean like if they don't have the child to take, the person who's going to take rebirth, if they don't have the karma to be born to an abusive parents, then they can't be born to those parents. Like that would be a situation where they wouldn't make a connection from the bardo, right? And vice versa. It can go different ways, but it's like, the individual, according to their karma, they have the karma to take rebirth to a certain kind of parents in a certain kind of environment. So the parents have to match that, but I don't think it has to be that they actually have to, like I said yesterday, well, maybe they have to have been the parent of those people before. That I don't think so. I don't think it's that narrow. It's more of a general. They're general, and the parents have to have the karma to be those very, kind, loving parents for that person. So like the nature nurture, even an individual has to have the karma to become a kind of person, which is a result of becoming, born to a kind of parents also.
But you see,
so please.
That's not necessarily okay. It doesn't, because I'm sure you've met people who are the opposite of their parents.
Yeah, totally.
Right. So then what you just said.
Well, no. Yeah. Well, no, just because you have the karma to be born to a certain type of parents doesn't mean you're going to become like those parents.
Yeah, no.
Right. Like you can also have the karma to completely, disagree with your parents about everything.
Yeah.
And now, or something. Oh, yeah. Helen's pointing to her son.
Teenagers.
Is it true? You disagree with your mother about everything? You have to agree. No, then you disagree. Exactly. Yeah. Good answer. Yeah. Very good.
I heard something interesting that they were studying serial killers, and they had a particular characteristic in their brain that they could measure. And it turned out that the researcher had that characteristic himself. But he had never had any violence or anything in his life. So they concluded that nature formed him and nurture both the trigger.
Those serial killers.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That he, because this guy came with that characteristic, but didn't fulfill.
Right.
it.
Maybe because there was no conditions. There were no conditions present to cause that trait to come out.
Yeah, it was kind of an interesting way to put it, I thought.
Yeah. It can be like that. Yeah, I mean that's also, I mean, and that fits well with karma, like because we've all, I mean, that's one of the scary things about samsara. Like we've all created lots of kind of a karma, before this life that we don't know about. And so when we meet it's never sure, like when are we going to meet a kind of condition that's going to cause a karma to ripen that it's never ripened before. No, that can happen. No. Yeah.
So I'm going to ask this question in case I don't get a chance later, but I'm going to squeeze it in now. So would you say that the sort of the most useful, the usefulness of understanding the truth truths and emptiness and all that is sort of in relation to understanding people and our relationship with people. Because I mean, to me, I find that that's the most useful. rather than remaining in the esoteric realm, of yeah.
Yeah. So you mean like how is it useful to
No,
understand?
I mean, do you agree?
Oh, do I agree?
I want a validation. That's all.
Yes. Yeah. Because I mean, first of all, ourself as a person, like emptiness and understanding of emptiness and the two truths, it helps understand, how we exist, how we, because like, and especially this third kind of dependent arising. Maybe I'll come back to your question, your comment, your observation in relation to that. No, so we exist in dependence upon causes, right? Yeah, and then we exist in dependence upon parts. Parts is kind of easy because we just have many parts of our body, parts of our mind. That's when we analyze to see how we actually exist, we discover this whole collection of all different kinds of parts. But it's important to understand everything that exists is composed of parts, whether it's permanent or impermanent phenomena, whether it's physical or something mental. Anything that exists is composed of different kind of parts. So parts doesn't mean like physical parts that matter. Like parts of our mind are different aspects of our mind. We see some things, we have visual experience, we have experience of sounds, of physical sensations. And then, in our mental consciousness, we have thoughts. We, think about, where's that airplane going that's flying overhead, or what happened yesterday, or what might happen tomorrow. And those are all different varieties of consciousness. And then even in just a one kind of consciousness, like an eye consciousness looking at the flower, it's made up of moments. You can divide up into, infinite moments through time. So anything that has continuity through time, it can be divided up in a succession of moments. So everything's made of parts. And then we, but we see when we analyze to see how we exist, we find that the way we exist is something we labeled upon a collection of parts. So on a collection of parts, I label flower. On a different collection of parts, I label, Gyewa Gyatso center. And different label of part, a different set of collection of parts, we label something else. So everything is labeled upon its collection of parts. But before we even get to the labeling thing, it's important to understand the difference between parts and the part possessor, right? That's a very important kind of thing. Parts and part possessor. They're in relation to anything, there's a difference between the parts and that which possesses the parts, and they can never be the same. Like take my mala, like the mala, is one object, this mala, but it's made up of parts, all the beads and the string, and then the shape and the color and the atoms and everything. So any of the parts, to be the part possessor, the mala, it has to be that which all those parts are part of, belong to. So it has to be that which has each of these beads and has the string and the color, and right. So none, like this bead, it's a part of the mala, but it's not the part possessor of the mala, because this bead doesn't possess this bead, right? They're separate, right? So, but this bead itself is also a part possessor, but its parts are, all the atoms and the molecules that exist within that bead, and that bead's particular shape and color. But all the parts of that bead are also parts of the mala, right? So it's important when we do the analysis of any object to remember that, like, there's always a difference between parts of something and the something which possesses those parts, which has those parts, the part possessor. So like when we do the analysis of ourselves as a person, we see the way we ordinarily appear. And then this reasoning is very helpful to because it shows us why none of the parts of our body can be the person, right? When they have an ordinary, like when I'm being falsely accused, I suddenly feel self-conscious. Okay, do I exist as a person? Yes. I seem to be this, concrete whole, this person existing by its own side. But then when I check, do I exist anywhere in the body? Are any of the parts of the body me? No, because those are all parts of the part possessor. The person that I am is the possessor of my body and all the parts of the body. It's the possessor of my mind and all the parts of my mind. That's why we can say my mind, right? the person who's I has to be something other than the mind. We can say my body, my hands, my legs, my memories, my, feelings, my thoughts. Because in each case, it's assumed that there's a person who's not my hands, not the legs, not the body, not the memories, not the thoughts. They're the person that possesses all those parts. They're the possessor of all those parts. So that's why when we search through, none of the parts of the body can be that person. None of the parts of the mind can be the person, because the person is that which possesses all those parts, right? And it's the same with any object. That any object is, this microphone stand is a possessor of all its parts. This clock, it's a part possessor. Anything that exists is a part possessor, right? It has parts, things that are part of it. But like, just as, the mala, just as none of the parts of the mala can be the mala, also the mala cannot be a part of itself. The mala cannot be one of its own parts. Right? Just as a part cannot be the part in relation to one object, like just one object, the mala, anything that's a part of the mala cannot be the mala. Also, the mala, the part possessor, cannot be any of its parts, right? The mala can be part of something else, it itself, it can still, anything which is a part possessor is also a part, right? Because we're all parts of something else. Like we're all parts of the universe. We're all parts of that which exists. We're all, the mala is a part of like malas, the word, I don't know, mala. So, yeah, yes.
But then like in math, if I have a list of one item, number one, then the list is one, and one is the list.
Oh, is that a list? Can there
Yes,
just be a
it's
list with
of one entry?
There can be
Yeah.
a list with one entry. Huh.
But I wonder if that's just a definition, the difference in definition.
Yeah. So, but in that case, yeah, that's a little different. But in that case, it's like, so you're saying like the list only has one part.
Yeah.
But like the list in that case, usually you think of a list, it's a part possessor.
Yeah.
Right? And then all the things that belong to the list, none of
Right.
them are the list.
Yeah.
Right.
But an instance of list with one member, you can have a one member party, and that party is whoever that is.
But I think in that case, it's like, it seems to me, it becomes almost like the list is a synonym for the member.
So it doesn't.
In that case, I don't think so. They would still like one itself possesses parts, like one half and one half are each parts of one. Any decimal point, like 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, up to 0.9, they're all parts of one, right?
Okay. For decimal.
Yeah. So, because you can divide up one. You just divide up one into parts, no?
Yeah.
It's half, 1/2, 1/4, 1/3. Those are all parts of one. So in that way, like the one possesses parts, the list also possesses parts. There's not a question of whether they possess parts or not, but it's more like, because I'm saying the parts and a part possessor are always mutually exclusive, right? So you're giving the example, what about the case of a list which only has one entry, one member of the list? Is that list, the list is still a part possessor, but that entry, that's a bit of a difficult one. Yeah, to me, that doesn't seem like a list, but maybe in math,
It is.
that is considered.
Computer science.
Yeah.
Well, you can form political party with one member, right? It doesn't have to be in the. Yeah, but we don't put in the list. Oh, but you can call a party of one member.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is relevant at all.
No, it's relevant because it's, just because it's a discussion of different kinds of part possessors and parts, right? But yeah. But see, there has to be, even like say, I mean, to me, the political party with one member is a bit easier to get the head around. It's a bit less abstract. But the party with one member, it's the party is something more than just that one member, right? Just because you had, before you formed the party, you had that one member existed, right? Like I'm a person, right? I'm a member of a party. But to become a party, it requires, you have to do things. You have to have, represent something and have a.
The law prevents one person to form a party?
No, I'm not saying that one person can't be a party. No, I'm saying for one person, it's just like for one person to become a parent, they have to have a child. It's like for one person to become a political party, they have to make some kind of political statements, It's, just because an individual is one individual and they have political views, it doesn't mean they're a political party, right? Otherwise, we'd each be a different political party.
Right, then I guess maybe it's the different definitions in terms of possession and a member, that they're not the same.
Yeah, but hold on, but list also, I think for like one to become part of a list, it has to be part of some other, in relation to some context, right? That thereby a list comes into being, in computer science, math, isn't it like that? Like you have to create a list, right?
Yeah.
Just like one on itself is not a list, right? How would something become a member of a list?
Create a no list. You can create a list with.
Yeah, but doesn't a list, it has to come into being in relation to other things, right? Like with some kind of function or some purpose or something.
Right, yeah.
Right.
Because you can add lists, you can remove lists.
So then what I'm saying is the list is not reducible to even its one member, because its being a list depends upon other things. Anyway, that's one way to look at it. But that's a good way to you have to, whenever, in Buddhism, to learn about, in Buddhist philosophy and philosophy in general, whenever there's an assertion made, try to come up with a counterexample. That doesn't fit the assertion. That's how you learn more about like the thing that's being, any statement that's being made. And then you see if it's true or false. So there's one thing in the chat here. Part possessor is mere imputation. Is it functional entity? Part possessor is a mere imputation. Everything that exists is a mere imputation. Is it a functional entity? Part possessor? I think you mean a functioning thing. No, part possessor is a permanent thing because it has instances which are permanent. This is beyond this class, but it's the basics of Buddhist logic that anything that anything that has instances, and some of its instances are impermanent phenomena and some of its instances are permanent phenomena, then that thing itself is permanent. That is always the case. So part possessor, there are things that are part possessors which are impermanent, like my mala, right? But there are other things which are part possessors which are permanent, like emptiness itself. So emptiness is a part possessor. My mala is a part possessor. They're both instances of part possessor. So therefore, part possessor itself is permanent, and it's not a functional. But I don't know. Nidhi's question. You're saying functional entity. I think you mean functional thing, which is synonymous with impermanent. Anyway, so sure, yeah.
Another word for part possessor, could we just call that a label or a name or a concept or a designation, and the part would be the basis of designation?
You're getting close to something, but well, first of all, is it the case that Well, that, hold on. So you gave a lot of synonyms. Can you just pick one?
Okay, so let's say, so let's just say, the
The first one you said was a label.
like a label, right? Okay, so that is a designation. If we say flower or label or
Okay,
yeah.
so let's just stick with label. And okay, so but first of all, so is label is a synonym, is label a synonym for part possessor? Right?
Yeah,
That's your
or
question?
designation. Let's choose designation,
Okay, is designation
a synonym
a synonym for part
part
possessor?
because typically a
Hmm.
basis of designation can never be the designation, right?
No, you want to clear up the language just a little bit.
Okay.
There's a basis of designation and the object that is designated.
Okay, so the object that is
Because
designated.
designation is like exhalation. It's a noun describing an action, the act of designating. To designate is a verb,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
Designation is the
Is the
act
label.
of
Mhm,
designating, right?
mhm.
But you're talking about not, when we talk about the basis of immutation, and the basis of immutation is always a collection of parts, right? And then the thing that is designated upon that, so it's not the designation, it's not the act of designation, it's the thing that's designated. That which is designated is the most precise way to say it. So that which is designated upon the collection of parts is the part possessor. So yeah, that which is designated on a collection of parts, that's synonymous with part possessor. That's a great definition for part possessor, right? That which is designated.
Okay.
So yeah, so exactly, and that's exactly the same case where, you know, the basis and so there's the thing which is designated upon a collection of parts, and then a synonym for the collection of parts is
Synonym
the
for
basis
collection.
of imputation.
Yeah,
You
the
said,
basis of
yeah, the basis of imputation. So the basis of imputation just means a collection of parts upon which something is designated or something, and that thing which is designated upon is the part possessor. Yeah. So there's a collection of parts, and then the part possessor of those parts. In relation to any object, you can find this. Like there's this collection of parts, all the beads and the string, and then mala. This mala is the thing imputed upon that collection of parts. So another way of saying that is this collection of parts is a basis of imputation for like Legtsok's mala. And Legtsok's mala is that which is imputed upon that. Yeah, that's saying. So that brings us to the next. Well, actually, there's one more. So the C here, so the four kinds of dependent arising I'm listing here. The first, dependence upon causes. The second, dependence upon parts. And then the third is the one that's not usually included, but it's helpful to think about a bit, that things exist in relation to other things. So like, is this mala big or small? Is this a big mala or a small mala? Well, you might say it's a big mala, but on dependence upon what is it's big. That only makes sense by comparing to other malas. Maybe compared to most malas, it's bigger, so you say it's a big mala. But is this like a big object? No, because compared to most objects, I mean, in a way, it's small, right? So that kind of, whether something is long or short, it's big or small, it's heavy or light, those are all relative things. You can only answer that by something old or new. You can only answer it by comparing it to another thing, right? Sure.
So,
Yeah.
So if I were to extrapolate that to human beings, that would be like,
You want to
if you say that
extrapolate to
someone
Trump again?
is yeah, okay. So let's
No, you don't
say,
have to.
right?
No,
Yes,
we can leave him out of some conversations.
right. But in this case, it kind of
Mm.
works. So we can say that he might be obnoxious to some people,
Mhm.
but then in relation to his mother, she will always love him.
Mhm.
So that means that maybe she doesn't think that he is narcissistic or whatever,
Mhm.
whatever qualities that we
Impute.
yeah.
Mhm.
So is that a way of using this in relation comparison point?
Yeah, that's similar. Yeah, that's similar. Yeah. Is someone is someone, mentally stable or not? It's a question of relative to other people. No, it's you just looking at the person on their own without comparing to anyone else. You can't answer the question. No. It's there's many, many, many things like that. So, yeah. Also, us being like a self, like Shantideva really plays with this a lot in Bodhisattva's way of life, like this kind of selfish concern versus concern for others. Like us being a self is independence upon others. Because there are others, we're a self. And because we experience our own body and mind the way we do, then we consider others as other. But actually, each other person is a self. In relation to themselves, they're a self, just as much as we are a self in relation to ourself. But I don't know, somehow we, but in the practice of exchanging self and others, you try to recognize that, that this way of relating to my body and mind, and then considering that more important, the experience of this, myself as a person, this body and mind, and that experience is much more important than anyone else's. For me, that's also just kind of a mental creation. It's a fact of habituation. We're habituated to considering, the experience of our body and mind more important than anyone else's, because we experience it in a first-hand way. Other people's body and mind and their experience, we only experience in a second-hand or third-hand way. But we can switch that. We can decide that, actually my experience is not so important. The experience of others, I'm going to consider more important. And we can, consider that other more important, and we can change the way we relate. Anyway, that's also related to this. Anyway, the third one, the main one. So the main three are independence upon causes, dependence upon parts, and dependence upon mental imputation, or imputation by concepts. So this is, also like, upon this I impute like Legtsok's mala, and thereby it becomes that object, independence on that collection of parts. Yeah, this is the one that's most difficult to see. But maybe if we go back to the meditation we did yesterday, that's always the easiest example, where, we see that the initial way we seem to exist from our own side. When we search for the person, this in essence to us as a person, we search for in the body and the mind, you can't find anywhere, can't find outside of our body and mind. So then but yet we exist. So then it becomes a bit more clear. How do we exist? As something that, I impute I have this regard for, when I see my body arranged in this way, I say I'm sitting. When I say I'm thinking about, lunch or something, I'm thinking. So it's like Lama Zopa Rinpoche, I found he always very helpful, the way Rinpoche always points out, like to have a sense of self, you always have to observe your aggregates first, right? If we never observe our body or don't observe our mind, there's nothing on which we can have a sense of, oh, I'm doing this. Like, so when it's like only in dependence upon this body standing up, can I say like, I'm standing, or sitting down, I'm sitting, or feeling a certain way, I'm feeling. So whenever we have a sense of I'm doing this, or I'm feeling that, or this is happening to me, we always have to observe first our body and mind. Clearly, our body and mind are parts. They're not the part possessor. They're not the I. But we observe those collection of parts, and then we label I. Without first observing, for us, a person, our collection of parts, there's nothing on the basis of which to label I. If we observe other things, there's no place to label I. It's only observing this body and mind. Upon that, then we label I. But the way it appears back to us is not as if I labeled I, like I labeled I upon this sitting body, and therefore I think I'm sitting. It appears back to us as if the I is from the side of the object, from the side of the body, from the side of the mind, right? That is not labeled by not us, but it appears from its own side. And that habituation is really strong, to think that things It's just as strong as to think the color of the cushion is there on the cushion, or the food that we enjoy the flavor of, that the deliciousness of that is on the food. There's many examples. All the examples we've been looking at, you can see through thinking about different examples how the habit to think that what's actually projected by the mind is the quality of the object is really, really strong. And it's very automatic. Yeah, it's completely, and it's something we've been with, for beginningless time, for countless lives, and we've rarely ever questioned or challenged. But I was supposed to come back to your last question. What was it about? Oh, right. Right. Yeah. So I was thinking to say it's important learning about the two truths, the way, we instinctively appear to exist. And then when we analyze how we're something much less concrete than that. And, so you can see how when we do this analysis, analyzing, how the ordinary sense of self, and then when we find we're not any of the parts of the body, we're not any parts of the mind, there's a sense of spaciousness that comes, and you realize, oh, what I am as a person is something labeled upon, kind of created by my concept of self upon the body and mind. I observe the body and mind, and then label self, and then thereby create a sense of self. And this is something modern psychologists study in very fascinating different ways. How the self really is it's kind of like a story that we create. So when we understand that, then it gives us a great sense of, well, I can change the story. I can recreate it in the way I want to be. So and then it gives us a sense. It's not the case that we're just kind of predetermined by our karma or the family we're born into or the kind of childhood we had or the kind of experiences we had. All those are part of who we are, but they don't determine who we are, who we are right in this moment. Yeah, as a result of many causes that have come before, but it's not fixed, right? And it's something that every moment we're changing, we're becoming something new every moment. And so we can either play an active role in how we determine what we become in the future, or just a passive role where we let habit just take its course, in which case we won't change very much. But it's very kind of empowering to see how we're changing moment by moment. We're made up of many parts of our body, many parts of our mind. All those are also changing. And then we're something labeled upon those, right? So we can really dramatically change our sense of self and who we are. So it's really that because our ultimate truth, or the most fundamental nature of what we are as an individual, is just empty of existing as something fixed in a way, empty of existing something that it's from its own side, by its own power. It's all dependent arising, all the way down. Everything is dependent arising. So it's kind of like similar to when you realize in physics that things that look really solid are actually 99% space. And so that means there's a lot of possibility for transformation. That all that space allows room for movement, right? So in personally, when you realize I'm just something imputed upon this body and mind. Apart from even then, when you add in past and future lives, it gives a lot more room, right? But that there's a potential to change. And so, yeah, it's related to what I was yesterday afternoon, the good news that, yeah, and that's the same for everybody, every person, no matter how good, no bad they are, they're not fixed that way. There's a potential to change, become a Buddha, become an enlightened being, something completely different. So that potential to become fully enlightened or to radically change, it depends upon that lack of inherent existence, emptiness of existing from its own side. That's why it can. Okay. So now these definitions we looked at. So now just a few verses. Actually, 2. Okay. We'll have a break in just a minute. Or maybe now's a good time for a break, because we're going to stop this session a bit early so we can take a photo together. But we'll have a 15-minute break now. And then we'll come back and look at these 7 verses we'll go through. Okay. Yeah. So this first couple of verses from Chandakirti's Entering the Middle Way, a bit about how conventional truth and ignorance and dependent arising are all kind of related. So this first one says, because delusion obscures the true nature, it is a concealer. Right? So that's another reason. Remember, conventional truth, that term, I mean, kunzop dempa is the Tibetan term. Dempa means truth. Kun means all, and zop means like to conceal or to veil. So kunzop dempa, it means, the etymology is something like things which are true for a mind which is all obscured. So what it means is, because remember, the mind, conventional truths, the mind which realizes them is a mind that's affected by ignorance, right? And therefore, the way the object, conventional truths, the way they appear to the mind realizing them as if they exist from their own side, whereas in fact they don't, right? So that's what he's talking about when he says, because delusion obscures. So here he means self-grasping, the fundamental ignorance, because, which in the other verse was called elaboration. Because delusion obscures the true nature, right? The true nature of things, meaning they're empty of existing from their own side. But delusion obscures that. Then delusion is a concealer. That which is contrived by it and appears to be real, the Buddha spoke as true for a concealer, right? So it's kind of describing the etymology of conventional truth. True, that which is true for a concealer or for an obscured mind. And fabricated entities are merely conventional. So entities, we fabricate, it's like observing our body and mind, then we fabricate an idea of I. We observe the white petals and things, and we fabricate the idea of, rose or flower. We observe, all the parts of the Ocean of Compassion Center, and we create an idea of Ocean of Compassion Center. We have a process of, taking votes. People vote, and then there's kind of process, and then we fabricate an idea of like president. Someone becomes president. It wasn't before. Or money. It's the same way. There's so many. Or the alphabet, the letter Z. We take these 3 lines, and then say, oh, that's going to represent the sound Z, and then so we'll call that Z. It doesn't exist as that from its own side. Everything like that. Yeah. So again, that verse, because delusion obscures the true nature, it is a concealer. That which is contrived by it and appears to be real, the Buddha spoke of as true for a concealer. And fabricated entities are merely conventional. Thus, when such phenomena are analyzed, nothing is found as their true nature apart from suchness. Right? So think of the meditation, the analysis of the person that we did. When we search for like the essence of I as a person, nothing is found except for the mere lack of such an essence, right? And yet the miraculous thing is, and yet I exists and functions. Thus, when such phenomena are analyzed, nothing is found as their nature apart from suchness, their ultimate nature. So the conventional truth of the everyday world should not be subjected to thorough analysis. It means like conventional phenomena, they work when, they function in the world, like we function. We continue from life to life. We create karma and then later experience results of karma. We have all kinds of experiences. But that doesn't mean that when we search for an essence to what we are, you can find something. So that's what it means when it says so conventional. Thus, when such phenomena are analyzed, nothing is found as their nature apart from their ultimate nature, apart from suchness. So the conventional truth of the everyday world, the things we ordinarily see, should not be subjected to thorough analysis. When we do thorough analysis to see how they exist at the deepest level, it's like they disappear, they fade away. And yet, at a conventional level, they function. Right? So everything exists like that. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. That's so it means like, not like we shouldn't do that, but we shouldn't, it's more like we shouldn't expect, when we search for the phenomena, we shouldn't expect to find it. It's like when we search for Ocean of Compassion Center. So the conventional truth of the everyday world, should not be, it's like we shouldn't, when we search for Ocean of Compassion Center, we shouldn't expect to find something. That is existing from the side of the object. That is, when we search for ourself within our body and mind, you shouldn't expect to find something, because that's precisely what all the other philosophical schools do. They expect that, they think there should be, for karma to work, like I was saying yesterday, for karma to work such that the person creates karma in one life and then takes rebirth in another life and experiences the results of that karma they previously existed, there should be something substantial that moves from life to life. Not just a person that's merely imputed upon a body and mind. So for most of the lower schools, they'll say that the stream of mental consciousness, that's the substantial existent person. That's the person existing from their own side, from its own side, right? And that's the real basis. But for the consequentialist school, they'll say, no, that's just another part of the person. That's just another basis of imputation. It's no more substantially existent than anything else. So that's what it means. So the conventional truth of the everyday world, it's kind of like, the everyday, the world, the way it appears. It's largely, it's not just a projection of our mind, like dreams. It's more real than that. Because, if it's just a projection of our mind, then it's, as the mind-only school would say, everything's just a projection of our mind. Then it's very difficult to explain why we have such similar experience. Why can we sit in the same room and if we each describe it, it's pretty similar, Whereas, we can't all have the same dream at the same time and then wake up and describe it. Our dreams will all be different, right? So it's not that, things are just a projection of our mind, but rather, in dependence upon a certain set of appearances, we label this or that or that or that. But then they appear back to us as if they're not labeled by the mind, as if they really are that from the side of the object. So it's saying, just because things appear like in the way they do, when you analyze to find what they really are, don't expect to find that appearance. The way things appear and the way they actually exist is different. So the conventional truth of the everyday world, that which ordinarily appears, it should not be, or it cannot be, or subjected to, when you subject it to thorough analysis, you don't find that. You find something else. It's kind of like saying, just conventional reality, just accept it for what it is, just as it is. That's how it is. Don't expect you're going to be able to dig deep down in it and find something real. There isn't anything real there. That's kind of what it's saying, yeah. And this verse is part of 4 verses from that. That there's one section in the Entering the Middle Way that His Holiness quotes these days. Almost every time he gives a talk, he'll quote those 4 verses, and this is one of them. So he encourages us again and again to meditate on this verse as a way of, as a basis for our analysis of emptiness. In this verse I drew from that other, I don't have it open in my laptop now, but that, which I wanted to get back to before we finish, actually. The all-encompassing mind yoga. I'll just show you. Because there in that, Michael Losang Geshe, he set out those 4 verses all together that His Holiness is, teaching again and again and again. Although usually when His Holiness mentions them, he'll quote them. Yeah, it's these 4. So this is the all-encompassing mind yoga. Remember we put up yesterday? And then in here, there are these 4 verses by Chandakirti. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 and a half, actually. So that one I'm quoting now is the, yeah, it's this one. It's the second one. Then we'll go on to other 2 verses. Yeah. Okay. So conventional truth as a path to realizing, I can't see, ultimate truth. Oh yeah. So we have to recognize that, it's by engaging with conventional truth that gradually we realize ultimate truth. And this is also quoting from Chandakirti. He says, those who remain outside Master Nagarjuna's way, his way of explaining emptiness, they have no means for attaining true peace. They have strayed from the truths of convention and of suchness, of conventional truth and ultimate truth or suchness. And because of this failure, they will not achieve liberation. So Chandakirti, he's kind of, telling the other Buddhist philosophical schools, and of course the non-Buddhists, like, if you all don't get in line and understand what Nagarjuna is saying, you'll not get out of samsara. There's no other way to be free from samsara. And then he goes on to say, the conventional truth is the means, while the ultimate truth is its ends. Those who fail to know the distinction between the two will enter wrong paths through false conceptualization. So, and here, one way to interpret this, probably the best way, is that what does it mean that conventional truth is the means? We debate about this a lot in the monastery. What does it mean that conventional truth is the means and ultimate truth is the ends? Mainly, it's like by understanding all different kinds of examples of dependent arising, right? By understanding many different examples of the way things exist in dependence upon causes and conditions, things exist in dependence upon parts, and things exist in dependence upon our mental engagement with them. Then we come to, see how things are devoid of existing from their own side, the suchness. Mainly it's that, and by using many different examples, like of the mirror, of the, the Dharma center, of the person, of the flowers, of, all different, by looking at all different kinds of examples, and the examples I gave of how, like, people in the past used to think the earth is at the center of the universe and everything revolved around it, but then under more careful analysis, they see it's not. How we used to think, solid objects really are solid. There's no space inside. But then they're gradually, understanding more, we realize actually they're mostly space. Their solidity is kind of an illusion. So looking at different examples of how things, the way they appear is oftentimes not the way they actually exist. That's all conventional truth, but it helps us to get at the ultimate nature of things. So the conventional truth is the means, while the ultimate truth is its ends. Those who fail to know the distinction between the two will enter wrong paths through false conceptualization. And then this last pair of verses. Oh yeah, this is again from those 4 verses that are in the all-encompassing mind yoga from Chandakirti, that His Holiness quotes again and again. It says, empty things dependent on convergences, such as reflections and so on, are not unknown. He means unknown in the ordinary world, right? So to many, so he's kind of addressing these people are saying, how can things be empty of any inherent nature and yet have any function, and be able to function in any way? So he says, empty things dependent on convergences. So dependence upon, interaction of things together, dependent arising, parts and causes and conditions and mental imputation. Things are empty. Empty things dependent on convergences, such as reflections in a mirror, right? So yesterday I was speaking about reflection in a mirror, how you have, the thin sheet of reflective metal, piece of glass, you polish the metal, make it very flat, and then when something appears in front of it, and a reflection arises. So that's like, and a good example of a convergence. The convergence of different causes and conditions. There has to be light in the room as well. And then the reflection arises. And yet, but the reflection, it looks like, it looks like the actual object, although it's not, right? So it's a good example of a false. Something appears in a way that it doesn't exist. When we see a reflection of the face in a mirror, it looks like our face is there, but actually, you investigate and it's not. It's not at all. But yet, even though it's like a false appearing thing that arises in dependence upon causes and conditions, yet he's going to go on, it has the power to produce effects. It produces an eye consciousness which sees it, right? So he says, empty things independent on convergences, such as reflections in a mirror, and so on, are not unknown. And just as from an empty thing, like a reflection, a perception can arise that bears its form, right? So there's a reflection arises in a mirror, and that the reflection, even though it's, it doesn't have any substantial reality, it doesn't even exist in the way it appears, but yet it has the power to produce an eye consciousness that sees that, that has the form of, that sees that object. Likewise, although all things are empty, although all things are empty, they do arise from emptiness in a robust way, right? So still cause and effect, it functions within there being no findable object. Since no intrinsic nature exists in either of the two truths, phenomena are neither eternal, like they're not something that last forever, nor are they annihilated. It's not that they totally don't exist, and it's not that when under analysis they're findable. They're somewhere in between. It's very, when you think about how things exist, it's very, like Lama Rinpoche, I can hear Rinpoche, Lama Zopa Rinpoche saying, it's almost like they don't exist. It's like it's just kind of this appearance. It's very ephemeral kind of thing, the way things actually exist. That's why when we meditate on emptiness, seriously, there's a fear arises that, everything I thought was so like concrete and real is not at all. It's almost like it doesn't exist, but it does, and it functions. And then the final verse so this is from the very end of, I think it's of chapter 6, the wisdom chapter in the Entering the Middle Way. And this, His Holiness likes to quote this verse a lot, usually at the end of a teaching. And he says, and like swans soaring ahead of the other accomplished swans. So remember, the king of swans, like the king of swans. Well, that was a goose, actually. But anyway, like the king of swans soaring ahead of the other accomplished swans, with white wings of conventional and ultimate truth spread wide. Propelled by the powerful winds of virtue or merit, the Bodhisattva would cruise to the excellent far shore, the oceanic qualities of the conquerors. So it means, so here so imagine like a swan like flying through the sky. Like when you see geese, you can say Canada geese. No, when you see the geese flowing through the sky in a V shape, right? There's one at the king is at the leader, because that one knows the way from continent to continent very far, and so they're leading all the others. But they're on the two wings. So this is a very common analogy: the two wings of ultimate truth, meaning wisdom realizing emptiness, and then conventional truth, meaning compassion, great compassion, renunciation, all the other aspects of the path, pure morality. So it's only those two together, working together, that one can cross the ocean of samsara. Propelled, and you need a store of merit, right? Propelled by the winds of virtue or merit, and then a bodhisattva, bodhicitta, and wisdom realizing emptiness. Then they can cruise to the far shore, or fly to the far shore, means cross the ocean of samsara and lead all the other sentient beings to the far shore. The oceanic qualities to the far shore of, what is it? The bodhisattva would cruise to the excellent far shore, the oceanic qualities of the conquerors, and thereby develop, ocean of qualities of a Buddha. The conquerors means the Buddhas. Well, they're not equal, but in that verse, when it says, when it's talking about the two wings of the bird flying across the ocean, and the wing of ultimate truth and conventional truth, in that context, it's talking about mainly about great compassion and bodhicitta. Like you can divide up the path into the wisdom side of the path and the method side of the path. So the wisdom side is all to do with ultimate truth, realizing ultimate truth. The method side of the path is everything else, right? It's renunciation, compassion, pure morality, meditative concentration. All of those things are conventional truths, right? But in that verse, he's mainly talking about, because think about for a bodhisattva, the two minds they mainly try to cultivate and increase the strength of up to enlightenment are great compassion and bodhicitta, and wisdom realizing emptiness. So in that verse, when it says and ultimate conventional truth, it means that. Yeah. But in general, no, because my mala has nothing to do with compassion. It's a conventional truth, right? Right. Yeah. So, yeah. Why don't we we'll do a little meditation just to end on this all-encompassing mind yoga. Try to generate, meditate a bit on compassion and bodhicitta, then visualize that taking the form of a white moon disk at our heart, and then the mind realizing emptiness. And imagine that taking the form of white vajra. The heart. You all know what a vajra looks like, right? No? Where's a good example of a vajra? Yeah, could you? Thank you. Yeah, so this is a vajra, and it's like this. Maybe you can pass the dana. It's a symbolic, implement. But it's like a ritual implement in Buddhist practice. But it has very rich symbolism. But one of the main symbolism, it's the symbol of indestructibility, right? Being indestructible. Some people translate as like diamond-like, like a diamond is the hardest stone. But yeah, I mean, you can see it has a very strong structure. Like there's a one spoke going through the center, and then 4 other spokes, coming around. And it's a very, I don't know. I mean, the way for that particular shape, I don't remember the explanation exactly. I've seen before, but why is that, that a symbol of indestructibility? It's related to the mind realizing emptiness, is because, well, let me say, basically, it's because the truth, like the ultimate truth, the truth, any truth, it's like objective. It is the way it is. It's an objective thing, and so it's very stable. Like 2 + 2 = 4. No matter what anybody thinks about that is a fact. It's always been that way. It is that way now. It will always be that way in the future. It's totally unrelated to what our opinions or what we think. That is true. That 2 + 2, you add 2 and 2 together, it equals 4. So it's similar. And so if we clearly understand that understanding is as unshakable as that fact, as that truth. So here the idea is that this ultimate truth is like that. When you search for what is the most fundamental way in which things exist, and you find, well, it's that they're empty of existing from their own side. They're interdependently arising, and therefore they're empty of existing by their own power from their own side. They don't have an essence. So that truth, it's always been the case in the past. It is the way now. It will always be that way in the future. That's just the way things are. So that's a very stable thing. It's indestructible. It's not changing. It's not going to be destroyed, no matter what anybody thinks. And so but the problem is, from beginningless time, we've never realized that truth. We always think actually the opposite, that things exist from their own side, that things exist as they appear, that everything has an essence and a reality apart from my concepts or anybody's concepts. And we believe that. And so that ignorance is totally unstable. because it's not in touch with reality. It's a misperception of reality. So any misperception, it's always unstable. So the idea is that if we can generate the wisdom knowing the most fundamental truth, the most fundamental nature of all phenomena, then that wisdom is as stable as that reality. It knows truth as it is, knows reality as it is. And that's extremely stable mind, extremely stable basis. And that's why, and then on the basis of that, as we purify our misunderstanding and all the other confusion that have come about from this fundamental ignorance, we can purify all of that and then abide in an irreversible state of like happiness, of joy, and kind of freedom from suffering. That's why it's possible to be free from suffering, because suffering is all based on an unstable basis, ignorance, which is a distortion of reality. So when we understand reality as it is true, it's much more stable, and that understanding can never be destroyed. So that's why it's possible to have a state of enlightenment or liberation from samsara that is irreversible. It will never change, away from that. So the Vajra represents all of that. So this implement represents kind of indestructibility. Indestructibility of the mind knowing the truth, in short. Okay, so just wiggle around and relax a bit. Take a few deep breaths. And then I'll keep it very short. We'll just try to focus for, 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. Meditation. So gradually draw your awareness inwards and observe your breath or your mind or another object of placement meditation for a minute or so. Just gather your attention. So then ask yourself, who's meditating? Or you can also ask questions like, where am I? What am I doing? But especially look at who's meditating and just try to see how, as a person, you ordinarily appear to yourself. And then search to see if that meditator is findable. So if it exists in the way it appears, then when we search for it, it should be findable. So then just briefly, look first to your body. all the parts of the body, and see if the meditator is findable in any part of the body. And then search through all the parts of the mind and see if this person meditating is findable in any part of the mind. And then search outside of the body and mind. You put your body and mind, imagine, off to one side. And then if you look somewhere else, can you find anything you can point to and say that is, the meditator, me, the one who's meditating? So then try to see how then that the meditator, the way they appears to exist ordinarily, if it exists that way, it should be findable somewhere within the body, within the mind, within the basis of imputation, or apart from those, separate from those. But it's not findable in the body, not findable in the mind, not findable apart from the body and mind. So therefore, it must not exist in that way. With its own essence from its own side. And therefore, nothing else can exist in that way. Either. So then briefly imagine, like we did yesterday, imagine everything dissolves into space. So all of the distant galaxies and the solar system, the Earth, all the other sentient beings, all the earth, the water, air, animals, gradually down towards oneself. And then from the periphery of one's body, oneself dissolves into space. It doesn't have to be dark, black space. It can be space pervaded by luminosity, by light. So imagine one's mind, and one doesn't cease to exist. Imagine one's mind just pervades all of this space, kind of illuminating all of the space. and try to identify with that space. It's not like there's a mind and then observing space. It's the mind and space are completely mixed, and I think that is me. It's all pervading, mind pervading all of space. So then imagine within that space, then recall all the other sentient beings, as we did at the beginning of each session. There we visualize oneself surrounded by all sentient beings, but without necessarily doing that, but just recall countless other sentient beings, mother, father, family, friends, strangers, enemies, countless other sentient beings, human beings, animals, hell beings, hungry ghosts, gods, demigods, and how they experience suffering, especially sickness, arguments, relationship problems, depression, worries, fears. And remember how one's own life is interconnected with all of this other sentient beings in this life, in countless past lives, in the future. How every pleasant experience, every form of well-being and happiness, every profound spiritual experience, every experience of love or insight, has all arisen in dependence upon countless other sentient beings. So recognizing that, then generate compassion, wishing that, may I myself be free from suffering. And then may my mother, father, brother, sister, family, friends, and all the human beings, all the animals, all the hell beings, in short, may all sentient beings, without excluding one, thinking, may they all be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. And may I myself cause that to happen. So try to generate a mind of compassion. And then think, so within this sphere of this infinite sphere of space, like of the mind, remembering emptiness, the spacious mind remembering emptiness. So try to imagine within that, then this mind of compassion takes the form of a moon disk, a disk of white light at one's heart. So try to have some awareness of emptiness and also generate a mind of compassion for all sentient beings. And imagine that mind of compassion takes the form of a disk of white light at one's heart. And again, try not to think of it as something separate from oneself, but think of like, I am that disk of white light of compassion. Strongly identify with that mind of compassion. And then the visual appearance as a disk of white light. And then imagine, so the mind understanding dependent arising, the deep interdependent arising of all phenomena, and thereby their emptiness of inherent nature. So you can bring to mind the analysis we just did, where we search for the self, cannot find in the body, cannot find in the mind, cannot find somewhere else. Thereby it must not exist from its own side. So whatever understanding of dependent arising and emptiness, especially emptiness that you have, imagine that takes the form of a white vajra made of light, standing upright on top of this moon disk at your heart. And again, strongly identify with that, thinking this is me. And then there's two mantras to stabilize. So imagine, I'll say the mantras out loud. They're also on the screen, but you can say along if you like. And then so the mantras are to stabilize the visualization. Yeah, and the stabilize is kind of identification with this minds of compassion and the wisdom, understanding emptiness, kind of appearing as a moon disk and a vajra standing upright. So the first mantra is Om Sarva Yoga Chitta Upatayami. So Om Sarva Yoga Chitta Utpatayami. Om Sarva Yoga Chitta Utpatayami. And then the second one is Om Surate Samaya Stam Ho Shridaya Vajrayata Sukam. Om Surate Samaya Stam Ho Shridaya Vajrayata Sukam. Om Surate Samaya Stam Ho Sidya Vajrayata Sukam. So imagine through the blessing of those mantras, then this one's identification with this mind of great compassion extending to all sentient beings, appearing as a disk of white light at your heart. So your identification with that becomes very stable, and then also with the vajra of white light, which is an embodiment of this mind of wisdom, understanding the emptiness of all phenomena. So that becomes very stable. Mm. Mm. So then we'll dedicate the merit. You want to lead dedication prayers? Do you have prayers there to lead? Conclusion of the teachings. Sure. Well, we can do that. Yeah. The swift return prayers. Yeah, let's do those.
May whatever virtue I have collected benefit the teachings and all transmigratory beings, and may it especially cause the essence of perfect pure Losang Rakpa teachings to shine forever.
We can do a short mandala offering.
Om Sachi Bhagi Jokshing Meto Ram Pri Ravling Chi
You open that kata up.
Sangye
Yeah, no, put it- touch to your head.
Jetsulame Userapten Chinam Katrinle Chuk Chukye Lo Sang Tepe Ron Me Sa Sung Ki Rove Selta Tu Ne Guchi Nidam Guru Rana Mandala Kamnurya Tuliyami. May the precious Supreme Bodhisattva not yet born arise. May that arisen may not decline, but increase more and more. May the precious view of emptiness not yet born arise. May that arisen not decline, but increase more and more. Samsara and nirvana lack even an atom of inherent existence, and cause and effect and dependent arising are unbetraying. I seek your blessings to discern the meanings of Nagarjuna's thought, that these two are mutually complementary and not contradictory. May the precious realization of the two stages not yet born arise. May that arisen not decline, but increase more and more. Incomparably kind and supreme Tenzin Gyatso, the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, may you have a long life and all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. They were of the land of snows, teachings, and transmigratory beings, who extensively clarifies the path that unifies emptiness and compassion. To the lotus holder, Tenzin Gyatso, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled.
We can do that one too.
This one.
Yeah, and the land is circled by snow
Snow
mountains.
mountains,
You're
you
the
are
source of all happiness and good. All powerful Chandra,
Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends.
Then we go to the swift return prayers. Mhm. Mhm.
fearless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious one, Shravakas and Prachitka Buddhas, victorious Losang, father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge in infinite lands. Please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now. Holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice, you are the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable, vulnerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and form other living beings, you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels and the great waves of Buddhishita of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly gleam in glory for fortunate disciples. Patient in bearing the hardships of spreading the teachings of the Muni in general and the teachings of the victorious Jamgon in hundreds of directions. Lord of Dhamma, holding the three vows and wearing saffron robes, please quickly return us the glory of the peerless teachings. You held the teachings of explanation and practice with great asceticism. Unable to bear the transmigratory beings are confused by the darkness of suffering. Through your great loving kindness, you skillfully led them to happiness. Unparalleled Son of the teachings, please return quickly. Beautified by the ornament of supreme patience in increasing the practice of the supreme authentic teaching of the victorious one, through listening, reflection, and meditation, guide of all transmigratory beings along the perfect path. True and pure Guru, please return quickly. Guru, think of me. Guru, consider me. Most gracious Guru, care of me. Most gracious root Guru, do not deprive us of your compassionate refuge. Listen and consider this heartfelt prayer made by a tormented disciple. Guru, embodiment of the Buddhas of the three times, please bless me. You may rest in all-pervading great bliss, equipoised within the dhatu of unimpeded luminosity, yet the playful dance of your loving compassion emanates in myriad ways. The time has come for the return of the swift appearance of your magical wisdom, the Rupakaya, and for you to care for us once again with your affectionate compassion. Arise, arise, arise from the Dhammakaya. I invoke you, I call upon you, I implore you on behalf of all beings. Do not rest in Kichara or other pure rhymes, rather to benefit the Buddha's teaching and all living beings. Swiftly return to this southern continent to spread the Buddha Dhamma of study. Quickly return to guide us, poor, wretched beings, such as the desperate Kayavas, your disciple. Return so that we may actually behold your presence and receive the blessings of your body, speech, and mind. All violations, errors, mistakes, and broken samaya that we have made in relation to your body, speech, mind, and spontaneous activity through our being confused and conceiving things in erroneous ways, please confess with the luminous emptiness of your three kayas. Of everything auspicious, the supreme auspiciousness. May there be the auspiciousness of emptiness and compassion. May there be the auspiciousness of a timely meeting between master and disciple. Through the force of the truth of unchanging suchness, may the unmistaken incarnation return quickly. This lament was made by me, a Dakini with pure faith and samaya, her eyes filled with tears of sorrow. May these wishes of a beggar woman be fulfilled through the blessings of the deities of the three roots. Perception, its object, and the perceiver are dissolved within the expanse, blissful clarity of suchness.
So within awareness of thinking all the merits that we've created through this weekend, through this course on two truths, are empty of existing from their own side, as is the I, the one who's making the dedication, and then the act of dedication, and all the objects towards, or the aims towards which we dedicate are all empty of existing from their own side. They're all merely dependently arising phenomena. So within that recognition, then we especially pray for the long lives of all of our holy gurus, His Holiness Dalai Lama and others. And for the Buddha Dharma, the Buddha's teachings, to remain long and flourish in the world, benefiting more and more sentient beings. And then bring to mind any other, also for peace in the world, for peace in Ukraine, and in Israel, between Israel, Palestine, in Syria, Yemen, Libya, all places in the world where there's violent conflict between different groups or individuals. May the minds of all individuals involved be filled with tolerance, patience, loving kindness, and the wish for peace and happiness for all. And may the conditions for that actually to happen, all those conflicts be pacified, come about without the slightest delay. And then, of course, all those who are suffering in any way whatsoever, those who are hungry, thirsty, have severe mental illness, depression, relationship problems, loneliness, may they all be completely healed in body and mind. Those who have recently died or passed away, may they quickly take a precious human rebirth, or rebirth in a pure land, with whatever conditions are most beneficial for them to continue on the path towards enlightenment. And then may the global problem of pollution of the environment, and also global warming, through pumping carbon dioxide, methane, and other greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, may solutions to that quickly be found before more and more disaster, harm appears on the earth due to pollution of the environment. And then especially for all the beings in the other realms we don't ordinarily think about, all the animals, hell beings, hungry ghosts, gods and demigods, may they be free of the karma to exist in those states, and their karma to take a precious human rebirth, meet the Buddhist teachings, and practice an unmistaken path to enlightenment quickly manifest. And then bring to mind any other prayers or dedications you'd like to make for yourself, for family, friends, and others, or other causes. So may all of those, your virtuous prayers, quickly be fulfilled in accordance with your wish. And then especially may, remembering that the Buddhist teachings, as we have access to them now, has come down through us, through the Tibetan people. For thousands of years, they've upheld the Buddha Dharma in Tibet. And now, there's great danger to that due to oppression by the communist Chinese government. So may Tibet quickly have religious, political freedom. And may all the intentions and the wishes of His Holiness the Dalai Lama be fulfilled exactly in accordance with his advice. Especially may the Tibetan people and all those upholding the Buddha Dharma be able to continue to do so long into the future. May there be unmistaken chains of transmission of not just the written word, but also the experiential realization of all the aspects of the Buddhist teachings far into the future. And then especially to that end, may the FPMT, the larger organization that Ocean of Compassion is part of, may all of their projects and all the other Dharma centers, all the other Dharma brothers and sisters in their practice, and in short, all the works of the FPMT, and may they flourish and have every supportive condition, be free from every obstacle, especially the building of a great stupa for Lama Zopa Rinpoche and Bodh Gaya and all the other projects Lama Zopa Rinpoche intended. May they be able to be brought to completion in accordance with Rinpoche's wishes. And all those involved, the staff and the sponsors and students, all work together in with harmony, with loving kindness for one another, and with pure ethical morality in all their actions, pure ethics. And then especially this center hosting, Ocean of Compassion Center hosting this event. Likewise, may it be free from any obstacles to its activities, and may its activities to benefit sentient beings only increase more and more, and have all the necessary conditions as far as volunteers and sponsorship and students, and every condition to be able to flourish. May it continually come together and enable the center to flourish and benefit sentient beings in more and more vast and profound ways. Okay, so that concludes the teaching session. Yeah, thank you to you all. Yeah, you've been a wonderful audience, very engaged, asked many good questions. It's been a pleasure. And also to all you online, thank you.